Yeah,
Perfect.
sorry.
We're quite enough already, so we can we can start. I'll share a bit more about myself, just to give you some details. Maybe you will have some questions afterwards, and then we can actually start talking about the topic of the presentation. So, let me briefly share a bit more about myself. As Lisa said, the last 8 years, I've spent at different marketplaces, working across 5 different countries. I've worked in Southeast Asia, I worked in Europe, I worked in Estonia, I worked in Ukraine as well, worked in Russia, and also worked for companies that was based in States and Singapore, and was predominantly focused on American markets. All these marketplaces were not only taxi, but really, really different. It was medical marketplace, it was hospitality marketplace, it was marketplace for collectors, and it was gaming marketplace, and of course, ride-hailing. More than half of this of these 8 years, I spent helping to grow ride-hailing companies across the world. And the biggest chapter of my life in ride-hailing was at Bolt, where I spent 3 years launching and expanding markets. In the end, when I left, I had 6 markets, the whole region, more than 300 million euro of annual recurring revenue under management, and a big team of 86 members. For sure, it was not 86 direct reports, it was just the teams that I had in different countries that were reporting to me in general. And you also can see that one of my big passion, apart from marketplace and working for startup, dynamic, and fast-growing companies, is my beloved corgi. Her name is Phoebe. She's not here with me, unfortunately, but you can always say hi to her, and I'll say hi to her when I'm back. So today we're talking about how to test hypotheses fast, low cost, when you want to expand. It could be expansion of the product, it could be expansion of your business, and it could be a geographical expansion. It doesn't matter significantly what kind of expansion you are looking for, what you're striving for. It's actually the approach that matters. The basic principles, the core values of how you do it, how you test, how you work, and how your team is actually working. Do they have the same vision? Do they have the same approach? Do they know how to use it in everyday work situations? So the quick agenda is here. Introduction, it was already done. The tool, we will talk about tools and technique for quick testing. We'll talk a bit about frameworks for hypothesis testing. Also, we'll discuss several case studies, and there I might need you to answer and ask questions in the chat if you are up for it. And also best practices and lessons learned in the end, and also Q&A or interactive session, depending if you have any questions after my presentation. In terms of timing, I think that I'll try to make it quite concise and brief, around 35-40 minutes, so we have a bit more time for discussion, for questions, and some maybe brainstorming. Maybe some of you will have hypotheses that you want to test, and you'll ask for help of the audience and me and Lisa as well. So let's start. We have 13 people in the chat. This is great. Any questions at this point? Nope, chat is empty. So yeah, let's kick it off. So as we talk about expansion, and here I'm talking about the market, but once again, I want to remind you, it's not only the market expansion, geographical expansion, it could be product expansion when you want to introduce additional features, when you want to do some big development in the product, big changes, or it could be even launching new business in addition to what you currently have. We always say every market is unique. Assumption from existing markets may be very costly. What I'm talking about, every time we're trying to launch new business, replicate business in a new country, develop additional product, we always, as human being, we always use previous experience we have. We use it as a framework. We use all the prejudice. We use all the experience we accumulated from existing markets and existing market launches, existing product launches. and we actually use it as a prism that will through which we're looking at a new adventure. The thing is, it might work, it might be very costly and not work at all. And if we talk about ride hailing, we are now like more or less talking about ride-hailing and taxi here. If we talk about it, right now, the situation is absolutely different from what it was, let's say, 10, 11 years before, or even 15 years when like just Travis Kalanick just had his idea of an application where you can actually get a taxi or like drive home. Right now, competition landscape is very, very fierce. Right now, I would say that there is almost no territories, no countries where you can find no ride-hailing players. It could be very condensed and very tough competition. It could be a bit slower, not that saturated, but still you have to compete with someone. It could be a traditional taxi, it could be traditional taxi versus plus ride-hailing companies, global unicorns, and it could be something else. Also, it's about time. Even if the competition is not fierce in the region that you're looking at, it might be at the same time your biggest competitor or few biggest competitors are looking at the same very region. You know, it's quite rare that great ideas come only to one hand, to only one mind. Usually, like there are quite a few people, quite a few businesses, quite a few business owners who are actually checking potentials and new markets to enter. Also, if we talk about like, you know, how costly could it be, it's always about financial resources and missed opportunities. If we talk about unsuccessful launch, the launch and market expansion that in the end will be a failure. We talk about that money you have to burn, money you have to invest and never get anything back, or like, you know, get very low return. Or we can also talk about missed opportunities. It could be if you think about it, this amount of money you could spend on something better, on something else, and it could actually generate you a higher return, bigger profits, or something else. I look at it like, you know, from different perspective here. And also like, you know, why it could be costly. It could be also costly in terms of resources, in terms of your team time, team focus, team talents that were invested into something that is not was not worth it, or was, you know, quite badly researched, or not actually having great potential. And it's also like about missed opportunities. Your team, as talented as they are, as you know, skilled as they are, they could use it like in different geography, they could use it for different product, and it could actually bring much better results if you compare it with what could be the potential risk of it. And the last but not the least, as I think that, you know, everyone who is here, you're super interested in building sustainable business with great brand perception, with great naming and great reputation. No one, I guess, wants to work for a company that is famous for, like, you know, bad behavior, bad treating drivers, bad treating customers, really low customer service, really bad product, like, you know, tech issues and tech stability. Everyone wants to say proudly that I work for a company, and the name, like, you know, I'm super proud to say, like, you know, I'm as a Lola team, we're part of Onde brand that is helping a lot of partners, like literally 1,000 partners across the world, to grow their business and just to build their brands. And every time you make a failure, it's always a question, like, you know, if it's something public and reputational and brand damaging or not. If it's not, it's actually quite easy. If it is, it might be quite heavy for the brand, for the business development. And we all know a lot of cases around the world when actually brand damaging was in the end was the final, and like, you know, was killing the business, or it was devaluing business so much so like the competitors could buy it like for €1 or a really low amount. So like I'm not pushing you, and I'm not trying to scare you, you know, not to I don't want to sell you the position of not to expand, not to develop, but just I want to tell you how important it is to test and try first with low budget and low scale, just to make sure that you're not spending too much time, too much talents, and too much of your resources into something that might be not very beneficial for your business and might not be very interesting from a financial point of view. So if we skip to the next slide, we talk about different tools and technique for quick testing, and I think that most of you are quite aware of what kind of tools we have, what kind of toolkits we have. I think that right now it could be fair to say that almost none of the business is using exactly one tool and one technique. It's always a mix, it's always a set. It actually allows us to use and benefit from everything that we can use at most. And if we talk about data analytics and market research, we need to make sure that we got it from very objective sources, that the data is actually representative, that the data is up to date. Just as of now in 2024, end of 2024, we don't need any data actually that is was 15 years, that is 15 years old. Back then, there was no big companies like Onde, Lola, Bolt, Uber, and so on. And the landscape shifted a lot. So we need as much updated data as possible just to make some of our decisions based on that. And also, we need to make sure that we know who interpreted the data, which of the members of your team, which of the experts that you're asking, or maybe what agencies that you're asking interpret the data, and what could be the potential risk. We all know that, the data is as objective as it is. It's just numbers, it's just percentages, it's percentiles, and so on. And the question is how to use it to make sure that your business understands it better and understands it in a way that is beneficial for your targets and for goals. Also, A/B testing, quite well known as well. Everything that we want to test, ideally, we don't launch it full scale for every user of our business. If we talk about ride hailing, we're not launching everything to all the drivers. We're not launching everything to all the customers and riders. We just try and select 2 control groups. The question is it should be statistically representative. It should actually these groups should correspond to the requirements that we set for the groups, and we see how their behavior changes, whether or not we change something in our product, in our pricing policy, or somewhere else. And based on the results of the A/B testing, we should make our decision, we should measure the results, and we should make our decision whether we implement something that we tested on a small scale, and make it available for everyone, or we see that the results of the test are not really good, or maybe not that significantly better than it was, and it would require much more resources to be invested to make it more significantly impactful and more influential for the business. Surveys and feedback. This is to be honest, I'm quite prejudiced and partial here. This is least favorite things that I use in my work. Surveys, feedback form might be quite opinionated, and it's also they also depend a lot on how the questions were formulated and responses interpreted. And also the question is how to make sure that we're asking questions and we're asking feedback from the very specific target audience, from the ideal portrait of the customer. It's actually quite tricky one to execute and to get the results that are very true. As also we all know that people tend to sugarcoat, people tend to avoid answering some questions that might be perceived as very negative, very strong, opinionated, and so on. So it's also quite big. There is quite big level of freedom to interpretation after we run the surveys. So it could be quite tricky one, but still it's actually quite influential tool, and in right hands, it might bring you really, really good results. And also, the last but not the least, it's pilot programs. I would call it potential MVP. Here we talk about launch limited scale operations to test market response. For example, if you're thinking about launching in a new geography, in a new country, you might pick one small city, not the capital, just to make sure that you're not boosting so much big cities, as that would require big budget from marketing, would require quite a lot of market research in terms of political landscape, in terms of regulations and legal. But you can pick the small one and launch some ads campaign and see, for example, what would be your cost per install, what could be your cost per registration of the driver, what are the comments that people leave on your ads post, like for example on Facebook, and what are they asking? Maybe they chat with you. Sometimes when we launch ads in some potential markets, we get quite a lot of questions in direct to Lola Rights page on Facebook. And based on the questions, based on the comments, based on the discussions there, we actually have found out several issues that were helping us to understand better the market, to understand better the reality and like potential barriers or maybe potential requests of our future clients. When I say clients for ride hailing, it's both its drivers and customers as well. So here are the basic tools, and then we'll switch to more to discussing the approach, how it should be used, and what's the frameworks that we're using in our job at Lola. I was using while I was working at Bolt and other companies, and I would recommend anyone to use. And as far as I know, the biggest tech companies are still using it just to make sure that they're staying fast enough to win in this competition race, and also to make sure that they focus on things that really matter, that really brings them value, brings their company additional growth, rather than spending time and efforts and money on something that is not helping them to grow. So I think that everyone who has been watching or watched at least maybe 2 or 3 lectures of Y Combinator is the biggest and the most successful startup accelerator in the world in Silicon Valley, knows about lean startup methodology and the lean approach in general. And one of the methodologies that I want to share with you, it's build, measure, learn. It's actually what I would call myself wishes cycle of every startup, wishes cycle of every dynamic company that wants to grow and develop fast. Here, we all think that everything starts with the idea. So from the idea, it should come to something that is more tangible. And in this case, if we talk about the testing, we talk about MVP, minimum viable product, that actually allows you to test the main features, the main idea of what you want to build. For example, if we talk about ride hailing, I wouldn't recommend you to build a super app as we have right now. For example, Grab, the super app from Asia. No, the best approach to test is just to allow people to have an app with point A and point B and see only the estimation of the price and estimation of driver's arrival. Nothing more, nothing else. This is the basic feature. And if the basic feature is actually demanded, if the response is very positive, if the response is very high, you think that, okay, if I improve it, it will be even better. So it's actually quite good. But if you launch something like this and try and test it with simple execution and it's not working, 0 response or all negative responses, maybe it's not the point when you think, okay, if I add something on top, some glitter on top, some nice feature, it will be booming. My experience and I guess experience of many others shows that it's not the case. So after you have an idea and you build a prototype, MVP, you need to meet your customers. You need to put it as a product and talk to the customers, talk to the consumers, talk to the users who will be using your product. And as again, we're talking about ride hailing and taxi, you need to talk to taxi drivers or drivers in general, and you need to people who need rides to taxi rides. Or in general, we would say you need to talk to people who are ready to pay a bit more than public transport to get from point A to point B any time of the day in a specific locations that you're looking for to launch or to expand. And after you tested, you gave it to them and you saw how they navigate, how they use it, what is the questions, what is the complaints, what is the general feedback. You need to measure it. For example, if you have if you have built an MVP and you ask 1,000 drivers to try it, you showed it to them, you did a presentation, you did a nice speech, and you see that, for example, only one of the drivers registered and actually decided to try. Maybe the question is do they really need it? Maybe the product that they have right now, it could be custom and traditional way to get a taxi, just on the street, or maybe call centers. Maybe they cover and close all their necessities, all their needs, and they don't need anything else. Or maybe also it could be the point, maybe you haven't teach them enough, you haven't promoted the product enough, maybe you need to do something else. But without the measuring the results, for example, that, okay, 1,000 drivers actually download the app and ask how to start driving. And you see, but for example, on demand side, you see it's 900 out of 1,000 customers that you try to talk actually download the app, try to put point A, point B, but because of the only one driver on another side, they were not able to find driver and to go somewhere. It could be a question. But without measuring, without knowing your numbers, you don't know where to move and where to fix and what to fix in your product. I'm not saying that with numbers you definitely know where to move and what to fix, but it helps you to see the direction where to move. So you see the direction where to dig, where it could be the next problem to solve, that could fix your product, could fix your business. Or it might be the numbers that says, no, you shouldn't go there. No, it's not okay. No, there is no demand. No, the market is not ready. It might be that as well. But as I said, you built very minimum viable product. You're not investing a lot. You're not investing a lot of time, a lot of resources, and it will help you to save a lot of money. Just imagining what would happen if you launch full scale. You set up entities there, you bring people, you recruit team, you go there full speed, Facebook, Google ads, everything that is possible, on offline banners and so on. And only after that, you would understand that the market is not ready, or the market doesn't need you as a service. That would be much more painful in terms of stopping and ceasing the operations, and also much more painful in your P&L. The financial result of the period would be quite sad. And after you measure it and get the data, you get some learnings. So, and ideally, that's what I'm always advise to share. The learnings are not there. The learnings are not learned before, and they learned only after you discuss it with the team. You discuss why it happened. You discuss what does it mean for your business. You discuss what it means for maybe for the whole market, for the whole industry. And you discuss what you're going to do. And if it's a yes or no, you always have decision tree, right? If it's no and you're not launching here, and you still have budget because you haven't spent millions on launching the countries that is not there for you, not ready for you, you can actually move to another geography. And you can share with your team how you're gonna test, how you're gonna try something else in your geography, and why you want to test it somewhere else, based having your decision based on numbers, having your decision based on rough data, and not just having gut feeling guys, I feel that it should be good, or guys, I feel that it's not gonna work. So this kind of decision making is not actually very business-like, and not very rational in many ways, despite the fact that I know that some of the businesses are actually led by very intuitive managers. So as quick example, I want to share a few business cases from the industry. It will be mostly from Bolt, and some will be about Uber, but just to give you some examples how it might work. For example, when Bolt launched in South Africa, the team was based in Estonia. I think that the first 7 countries of Bolt were launched in Africa, on African continent, were launched before even anyone from the HQ from Estonia ever visited the continent, ever visited the local markets. So all was done on according to the lean startup methodology. You start having some ads campaign launched. You see how many driver registration you get. You see how many comments you get. What are the comments? You start communicating and you start onboarding people and customers, and you keep like, on a preview of the app. We will be there soon. Please, like, don't uninstall the app. We'll let you know once you are ready to go. And one of the problems there was quite tough competition. Uber was already there and was market leader with a lot of drivers driving for Uber, and as well as taxi drivers, like, call centers, and also taxi drivers just waiting for you on the street and ready to drive you somewhere else. So the main reason why like Bolt started looking for some other ways how to conquer the market was you cannot compete with, I mean, you can compete, but it's actually quite expensive, and it's actually quite time consuming to fight over paid ads and all the banners like on Facebook and Google and so on. So one of the question was like, okay, what we can do better than them, what they don't have and we can, and what we can have, implemented fast. And one of the things was safety is actually still, unfortunately, quite a big issue in South Africa. And people usually share like photos of the car and the license plate, and sometimes they share their geolocation with their relatives, partners, family, or friends they're going to meet. And one of the idea was, okay, like, if they do it, we see like the big market demand for this kind of feature, but none of the key players implemented it yet. So we can test it super easily with just a pop-up. As you can see, it was just a safety toolkit. You could share the right details. It was just a link to share your geolocation and the license plate and the color of the cars of the driver. And also it was emergency assistance. It was quite simple. It just led you to call specific number of this security agency that we had as a partner in Africa. So after first 4 weeks, we saw that, the number of people actually using share ride details, number of people checking like the safety toolkit, like pressing and checking, okay, how can I share? How can I make it safer? How can I make sure that, my relatives and family knows where I am and like that I'm all good? We actually realized that it was more than 60% of people using Bolt were checking safety toolkit. So we decided, okay, it means that it actually, it's actually working. It's actually really needed, and people see it, people look for it in the apps. So after that, it was decided by product teams that they will do an integration with local agency, and it will be just a button that you can press as, like, it's very sad, but in critical situations, it might not be very convenient for you to call someone and to ask for help, to share your geolocation. And SOS button, when you just press it intensely for several seconds, it's already a big sign that, something wrong is happening, and you might need some help. And after this, like, quite fast MVP, Bolt in South Africa implemented SOS button that right now is available, if I'm not mistaken, in all African countries where Bolt operates. And it's actually quite a great feature. And like, we, as a company, we got huge public media coverage. Everyone was like super happy that at least one big app implemented it, and it actually gave a lot of boost on drivers and riders side, as this button is available for both sides. It's available in driver's app and it's available in rider's app as well, just to make sure that everything is going safe and smooth for both sides. So it's an example, like, how the quick test actually allowed us to get bigger market share, to get great brand recognition, brand awareness, great PR, and actually improved our communication and collaboration with local governments, as they are also, like, take care about the safety and like criminal rates, and they do take care about people that are using the services that being improved by digital technologies for the last several years. But when I talk about lean startup methodology, I don't want to share like only great and good examples how it, how it worked and how crazy great results it might bring to you. I can tell you, like, every second, every third time, it's actually a failure. But luckily for us, at Lola and at Bolt, we're trying to make, you know, and like to limit the fail size and like the damage as much as possible. But I can tell you, like, you know, what happens when you use the same prism and the same market knowledge as you had in your home market. And I talking about both. It's Estonia with one of the lowest crime rates, lowest violation rates, and so on. And when you try to launch other markets using the same prisms, the same approach, and you treat the market as the market that you already know, but it's actually quite new. So the situation was like that. Bolt launched Bolt scooters, one of the verticals they have right now, in Estonia first, and then it expanded to other Baltic countries like Lithuania and Latvia, and everything was crazy good. So unit economics was really impressive. And like we actually looked at it, and I was working at taxi back at the time. We looked at it as a new great business to have, and like we just was dreaming, we're dreaming there, like seeing Bolt scooters in every city, in every country, like in Europe at least, and then across the world. So, and like one of the biggest mistakes in the beginning was that we thought that as we did already iterate from like crazy idea of having like electric scooter for a ride, build product, measure that data, and learn, and like learnings were amazingly great, and the feedback was amazingly positive in one market in Europe. We can actually expand it to the whole European space, to all European markets. So what happened? The next one was Paris, as like the most touristic place in the whole Europe, as place where we all know like the streets are quite narrow. There are not so much space to park, and also like, you know, metro has quite doubtful, quite questionable reputation in general. So it was a big PR media coverage. We launched several thousands of Bolt scooters in Paris, and in 2 months, like, you know, it was really big reality hit, as we saw a lot of even like when you check, I don't know, New York Times, even if you check some global media, you could see some Bolt presence on these pages, and that's why. Actually, like what we found out, that Paris has one of the highest vandalism rate in Europe, and actually like in the world. When we talk about vandalism, it's not about the crime rate of really big crimes like, you know, killing people and beating people, but also like people who steal money, people who pickpocket, people who actually damage public goods. They're everywhere, and the crime rate like in this specific area in Paris is very, very high, one of the highest, as I said, in Europe. So, and like out of a sudden, Bolt scooters became actually one of the biggest targets for people who didn't know what to do, maybe with their time, maybe with their strengths or whatever. And so we found out that more than 30% of our scooters actually were damaged for many reasons. Some of them were in sand, some of them were in other water pools, some of them were just broken or like, you know, tore into 2 or 3 parts. And it actually was quite you know, quite big reality hit, as unit economics was not working just at all, as you lose 30% of your fleet that was 99% safe and like all good in Estonia or like in Lithuania and Latvia, in France, within the first next weeks. So the question that we had, it was quite too late, but the questions that we had to answer to ourselves, okay, what we have missed, what we could have done better. And like if we talk about the same approach as we discussed, we could start with the idea, okay, maybe we could launch scooters in Paris, and we could do it with small fleet, not 4,000 or 5,000 scooters just sent to Paris, but it could be like 100 scooters in small touristic area. As for scooters, you can actually limit the area where they could actually drive, and we could see probably the same results, the same vandalism rate, the same, let's say, mortality rate of our scooters. And actually we could project better, like, you know, what would happen if we bring not 100 but 5,000 scooters? Will our unit economics be okay? And what is the perception? And also, like, if you would go several years ago to Bolt scooter page, like for France and Paris, you could see that public perception was not really good, as back then scooters were not regulated, and most of our customers actually left scooters anywhere they wanted. It could be on pedestrian side of the road. It could be just in the middle of the road, like after the night ride. It could be just at the entrance of the restaurant. It could be on in the parks. It could be on children playground. And like there was a lot of comments with negative feedback that it's not okay, is that you need to limit, you need to regulate it better. Otherwise, like they see more damage and like more bad things happening because of the scooters, rather than just being big fan of this shared and like quite green mobility tools that was introduced to Paris. So as I said, like lean startup methodology, it's actually quite good. Sometimes you can be you can fail even if you think that you mastered it quite a lot, and forget that the markets are very different, and there are a lot of things that you need to keep in mind before launching new geography and even new city in one country. It could be very, very different, even if we talk about, for example, two big cities in Estonia, Tartu and Tallinn. As like Tallinn unit economics was good, but Tartu was much better. And like, ideally, if I were a country manager for scooters, I would start with Tartu, maybe not with Tallinn. So after like this quite sad sad business case, I'll share a bit more and quite a big successful case from the industry in general, like Uber in India. Just imagine, like we're back in 2013, like 11 years ago. Uber was already quite big in States, quite big in Canada, and they were fighting for other mostly like English speaking markets, and they decided to launch in India. And back then, India was full of traditional taxi, traditional rickshaws, traditional tuk-tuks and motorbikes. And also like one big local competitor, which name is Ola, was quite present there and was fighting back quite hard. And so like the prisms that Uber had, and actually quite lucky mistakes that they did, that allowed them to conquer the market quite easily. So as you know, like the penetration of credit cards in the States is very, very high. It's right now, I guess it's more than 80%. So like almost everyone in the States have credit cards. They do cashless payments all the time. And like, I guess most of the time it's just like tips, or right now even tips are cashless. So you don't have cash with you, you don't have cash in your pockets, and you not used to pay for services and goods in cash. So one of the first launches in first 3 cities for Uber in India was that the only payment method that they allowed was credit card. But one thing that they missed, it was that credit card rate penetration in India back then was a bit higher than 20%, strictly danced in big cities like Mumbai and Delhi, and much, much worse in second tier, like third tier cities. So after the launch, Uber dynamic was not really good. I mean, they were getting more and more customers, more and more drivers, but in general, the results and the growth rate were quite low, despite the fact that they invested a lot in discounts and promotion, in paid ads, in everything else. And one of the decision was from a product manager of Uber saying, okay, like, we don't know how to process properly. Maybe it's like, the cards type, maybe it's transaction type that is not working there. Maybe we should allow them to try and use cash. And just imagine, like American guy in Silicon Valley, just imagining how it would be, to be a driver and a passenger in India. And he said like, okay, I'm not sure that cash might work, but let's allow them to pay cash. And in 3 weeks after they launched the cash payment, their market share actually doubled. Because cash, it's like the main way to pay in India. Don't please ask why Uber didn't do any market research, any research like, what's the main cash payment back then. I think that the startup culture of like leaning and testing super fast was not there yet. Or it's also like, this bias and prejudice of being expert in your own market and thinking that you are experienced enough, skilled enough, and intelligent enough to make sure that, it works for any other markets. So that's how actually, because of the mistake and like, some let's say last minute decision and to try something else before they reconsider what could be the payment method, but they still were sure that it should be something cashless. They tried to do cash. And after that, it's still cash dominated market, despite the fact that there are few payments method available at the moment already. And right now, after I shared like some business cases and the main approach, I just want to give you some examples to put you down to earth. I truly believe that most of the questions and most of hypotheses could be tested quickly and at low cost, but you just need to accept and need to make sure that you understand that it will not be ideal test, it will not be ideal products that you want to test, not the ideal execution and implementation, but it should have some basic features that you want to test. For example, instead of launching the full market, you can check cost per install or driver's registration cost first, and the common attitude to ride-hailing business in a specific city with paid ads like on Facebook or Google. It's just a test, just like for 1 or 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 1 month, and you'll get a bit more information about how it goes. I'm not saying that you don't need to do expert check, you don't need to do market research, you don't need to read the data, you don't need to talk to industry leaders in this specific area. It's just like something that you own as your own data, and you trust that it was like the research and like, you know, the ads were done and launched as you want it to be. So you're not just trusting someone else, but you have your own expertise starting being accumulated. Second example is like, instead of asking for additional feature to be released, check how you can test it, maybe via SMS, additional communication, push notification, or maybe even with, you know, inviting drivers to a driver hub, to like specific place, and just sharing with them what you see and getting their feedback. I'm guilty myself, like, you know, sitting in the office thinking, you know, how one or another feature would work sometimes can lead you to very, very wrong conclusions. You should talk to drivers all the time. You should talk to your customers all the time, and just to think like, you know, what would be the easiest way to check. Maybe like, you know, just share the idea, share the prototype, ask ChatGPT how to make it like in dynamic model dynamic, and show it to drivers. If like 100 out of 100 drivers would say like, you know, I would never use it, I don't like it, I don't see any reason why I would use this feature, maybe you should think about it. Maybe it's like, you know, the market is saying, okay, you don't need to spend sources and time and like efforts and money to release these features that you think that could be a game changer. And for example, or instead of spending time on integration with partners, I know, for example, right now, big ride-hailing companies are integrating with some service providers, for example, fuel providers, car washing services providers, and so on, to launch their own loyalty programs and to make it smooth and easy. But just before asking the drivers, do they need 3% discount for some specific car wash, you can actually offer them to go there if like car wash will be on the way, get a like, you know, physical loyalty card and see what was the usage for the next 6 weeks, for the next 2 months. And if the usage is high, it might be worth it. They see the benefit, they see the reason why they should, you know, do another turn, spend a bit more time, and to get like this 3, 5, 10% discounts. But if you see that the usage rate is close to 0, maybe you don't need to spend time on integration with a specific service provider. Maybe you need to spend time on something else that actually will benefit your drivers and will help them, help to retain them, and will help to, you know, to grow their loyalty to you and to your service. So, and also like, I think that Lisa already shared that all the materials will be shared after the webinar. And I want just to give you a couple of templates and like, you know, how it should be structured when you test it, when you discuss it with the team, or you can share it with your team members. Like, you know, you need to start with hypothesis first. And it should be hypothesis that is quite simply formulated and has some potential results that you might see if you do X. For example, passengers in city X will use ride-hailing services more often if offered at price Y point or with that discount rate. So like the question is like, you know, this hypothesis example is not 100% great, as like when I say more often, what would it mean? Like 10% more often, 50% more often, 100% more often. The difference actually could be really huge. And you need to make sure that you can actually make and calculate and count anything that you can. Like everything should be counted. You need as much data as possible. So after that, you build an MVP, you launch a small test and measure the results. For example, you increase the prices or like increase the discounts, whatever you want to test in a specific city, and like some part of your passengers getting like new prices or new discounts and some part doesn't. And like, you know, after a certain period of time that you're launching the test, having in mind that both of the cohorts had the same terms and the same like weather conditions, the same holidays and the same working days, you actually can use and the data and see, okay, whether the people who got discounted were heavier riders. Did they bring you more money? Did they use your service more often? Maybe they do complain more, and like you have to spend time on customer support for them, and it might not be as beneficial as you think. After you measure the results, in the end, it's all about money. Like, you know, you need to check how much money you invested and what was the return on group A and like what was the return on group B. And then okay, if you're happy with the results, you decide, okay, let's do some discounts or increase the pricing. If you're not happy, it's again a vicious circle. You need to redefine the hypothesis and do everything again. And it's never-ending story, to be honest. I don't know if some of you were hoping that it ends at some point, but not. And here is another template. I will not go through it as in detail as I did for the first one. It's just for you to use it maybe when you want to try new things and you want to set it up in a like, you know, in a more like theoretically correct way, and to try it with the team and discuss it with the team. And also this template usually helps to question the team members that bring you some idea and some hypothesis to test. You're like, okay, what is the definition of the hypothesis? How are we measuring the results? What are the good results? What is the bad results? What is something that, you know, is okay-ish in between? And how are we going to test it with at low cost possible and like as fast as possible? So I think that we're actually going to an end. Yes, it's my last slide, which is Q&A. I want to highlight once again, like that right now, unfortunately, we don't have luxury of having all time of the world. We don't have luxury of having all resources of the world. Everything is limited, and like, you know, how fast we move and how good with data we are, how good we are with like fast and speedy testing. It actually quite defines quite a lot, like, you know, how successful your business could be, how successful you could be as a business owner, like, you know, having a set of businesses or like one business and just getting maximum out of it. And I do hope that, you know, our approach, how we test hypotheses, how like, you know, the best players on the market are testing the hypothesis, being even like, you know, still like being like unicorns, decacorns, having generating billions of euros like and dollars every year, they still have these departments when the speed is everything, low cost is everything. You just try and see and measure the results, learn and try again. So I think that I'll stop here and we'll stop sharing my slides maybe, and ready to answer the questions if there are any. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ekaterina, for such a great presentation. I think it was very, very useful with so many different examples. Thank you so much. It was really great. We have one question, though I believe that you kind of answered it. Nas asked to suggest more practical scenarios, and that's what you basically did in your presentation, I believe. So, yeah, but if you have any other questions, please feel free to ask them. That's just the right time. I believe it will be great to, as Ekaterina mentioned at the beginning, if you have any like ideas about your hypothesis, something that you want to test, it's a great chance to ask for an opinion.
I can give you, like, while you're thinking, maybe I can give you one more example for just as an option. At some point, one of the colleagues of mine were thinking, okay, maybe we need to, you know, to map the biggest festivals, the biggest events in the city where we are operating, and like the schedule of them in the app for drivers, so the drivers know, for example, where to expect and when to expect. A really big demand of orders after musical festival, after, I don't know, big manifestation, after big gatherings there and there. And it like idea was quite okay, and it sounds reasonable, and we discussed it with the product team, and then we decided to test, maybe we need to do it, lightweight, like MVP first. And the easiest MVP was before we start mapping it in the map, before we start, teaching the drivers how to use the map, how to make sure that you are getting there in time, and how to make sure that you're getting the best orders that you can get there. We just started sending the schedule of the biggest events in the city by push notification and SMS. And actually we're checking how many drivers, comparing to the average, would go there on purpose, knowing that the festival is ending at 10 p.m. on Sunday, for example. And like what we saw in general, that the drivers are not really eager to go somewhere to get an order. You wouldn't go as a driver in this specific city, I wouldn't name the city, you wouldn't go as a driver across the city, passing 5 or 10 kilometers to make sure, in hope that you'll get some nice order for quite high price. You'd better stay where you are, you'd better get the order that is close, and then you see, maybe if you'll be close to the event place, you can get closer to make sure that you can benefit. But in general, the drivers were not eager to build their route or the working schedule to get to this events location and events venue. So and we actually, after we noticed that it doesn't work much and it didn't benefit us as a service, it didn't benefit much the drivers. Quite a lot of them were even complaining that we're spamming them a lot with information about venues, and they're not really interested in it. So we stopped doing it, and we actually called several drivers who sent us negative feedback to check with them, why they were not happy about it, and they said to us, guys, if I want to know where it happens, I will Google it, I will check it myself, but I will not go from point A to point B where the venue is happening. And the city is quite big, so I guess the average radius for the city was around 25 kilometers, and he and they in general, they mentioned it's too long, and I will spend time, I will spend gas, I will spend money, and I might miss some orders on my way while I'll be heading there just to get an order. I don't see any reason why I would do that. So in this way, with this SMS test, we actually saved quite a lot of time and energy of our product team, and also maintain good relationship with product team. Product team is not happy when you push something, they develop it, they release it, and no one is using it. So it's the worst. Actually, when you're a business and commercial part, you're pushing, saying it will benefit us, we will get 5% more orders or something else. And if they measure, and if it didn't generate anything close, it will be discounting your next request, request for feature and release. So you also should be quite aware of how it works in your team and in your company as well.
Yeah, that was a great example. Thank you so much for sharing it. And it's really interesting to know that drivers were not happy about this idea. But we have 2 new questions, and the very first one from Kazi Ali. Could you please elaborate how much traffic we can get from manual dialing or book a ride by dialing to an operator?
It's a good question, but I think that my response would be quite generic. It depends on the market tradition and what was the market structure. I can give you some example. For example, level of digitalization, like credit card payment, for example, in Russia is really high, and credit card penetration is really high. But in 2021, 2022. The number of orders done across the whole country by phone call was still around 20% of the whole orders that Yandex Taxi, as the main operator, ride-hailing company, got. It's mainly because of the traditions, mainly because we have senior people who are not really comfortable with all these smartphones and apps and so on and so on. And also because Yandex actually partnered with local taxi companies whose number and phone number some people could know from their childhood, from school. For example, in the city when I studied, it was 6 times X. 6x6, and like everyone knew that it was taxi. So like when Yandex launched in my city, they just bought out the company and bought out the numbers, and like they got really big customer base. So I would say like, you know, it could be as small as like a couple of percent when for the markets where ride-hailing apps are very, very well known, and the level of penetration is very high. The population is very young, so it depends on many other factors, or it could be quite high, as close to 50%. For example, if we talk about some rural areas where Uber, Bolt, and for example, Lola and Onde partners are not present yet. So yeah, it depends on very specific city and country.
Yeah, thank you so much. So the next one is, could you elaborate the trial app? Did your company have an app for this, or did you use your own?
I think that you can actually get a bit more detailed information from my colleagues from Onde, but we are allowing our potential partner to use the app for a trial period with some limited, I think, technical features and capabilities. But in general, you get, you know, as deep experience and as full experience as possible. And after that, you can decide whether you want to continue working with us or not.
Yes, exactly. We have a demo application, and yeah, I just have to mention that we also have Onde Lite, which is completely free of charge. Less than 1,000 trips per month are free of charge. And if you're really worried about your money and you're not so sure whether it's going to work for you or not, you can try with Onde Lite and see how it is going to work for you. Okay, that was the last question here, but let's wait for another couple of minutes, maybe. Okay, yeah, another one. So, another one from Kazi Ali. Uh, okay, you're right, but through app booking, it will be fixed rate or fare. So how could we know that our customer is comfortable with the recommended fare by app?
So just let me check. The question is like, you know, how do you know if the customer is comfortable and satisfied? I guess like the fact of booking and having a trip done, it's actually like, you know, the only way to know if the customers are fine with the trip. And also like the second thing that I would check if I were you, it's if the customer returns. Like, you know, sometimes we accept fares that we're not happy with, we're not comfortable with, because it's urgent, we need to go there, or like, I know it's heavily raining and you have no other choices. But the question is like, if you're returning after that, if you're returning again and again, it means that you're quite comfortable in terms of pricing and so on. Also, as far as we know, like we always put in the price that the price could be adjusted depending on traffic situation, depending on some other traffic conditions. So like it might get changed. So we never say it's fixed and you will pay only like, you know, the amount that we show you, because it actually the customers that can affect the pricing as well. You know, if the driver had to wait for like, I don't know, 10 minutes in addition to free waiting time and so on. But also you can launch some surveys. You can ask your customers, like, you know, for example, what their opinion about the pricing policy, what would they do change, what are the prices that they are more convenient with, or like, you know, what or you also need to do some pricing analysis, comparing your prices with competitor prices. If you see that you're like systematically significantly more expensive, the question is like, you know, why? You're providing better service, you have much bigger fleet or something else, or it's just, you know, a big sign that you need to reconsider the price policies if your services and your business is absolutely the same as the competitors.
Yeah, thank you so much. And we've got thank you from Ali. That's great. Yeah, thank you for your questions. How can we collaborate? I believe I can help with this one because obviously, like, The very first thing that you can do is, of course, sign up for our free trial, and then you will have a call with one of our business development managers, and they will be happy to learn more about what you're looking for, what your business needs are, and they will be able to understand like what exactly how Onde can help you with that. And I'm just gonna like, I'm just gonna type the answer and I'm gonna like find the link to our sign up page. But of course, because you will get an email after this presentation, after this webinar, you can always also like just answer this email and we will transfer you to the right person. But I have also shared already the link to the page, and I'm gonna also share it in the chat as well. If you like to try Onde, we have a free trial, 2 weeks. Please feel free to sign up right now and just test the system yourself and talk to our amazing business managers. Okay, another one. We need to have a Zoom call for discussions. Yes. If like maybe you can also share with me, Ali, you can share with me your email, like I don't know, in the Q&A box, or you can send it in the chat privately so that you don't need to share it with everyone. But you can share the email, and I will just send this email to our business development manager right after the webinar, and they will get in touch with you and you'll schedule a call. I hope this helps. And yeah, we will, of course, like we will talk first and then we will see how it's going to work for all of us. Great. Okay, yes, I got your email. Thank you so much. And let's see if we have any other questions here. Otherwise, we could probably call it a day. But another minute to use the whole expertise that Ekaterina has. Okay, I don't see any other questions, but in any way, like if there is any question that you have after this webinar, again, like you will get the materials and you can just respond to an email that you will get and ask these questions, and we will be happy to help you with it, of course. So nothing in the chat, nothing in our Q&A section. So I believe we can say goodbye to each other. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this webinar. It was really great to have you here. And I hope that I will see you during our next webinars as well. And thank you so much, Ekaterina, for such an outstanding presentation. It was really great. Okay, I'm so sorry. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Yeah, bye.